Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Hi everyone.
Hello everyone's.
My name is David Bell.
And my name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched The Lodge.
Sellage.
They should have called it The Loge.
The
Made about Donald Lozier.
What?
That's his name, right?
What? Are you talking about Robert Loggia?
Did I call him Donald?
You said Donald Lozier. I don't know
Let's do.
fuck that is.
Let's do another take.
No. This stays in.
His name's Robert. Who am I talking about?
I don't know.
I heard something. What is this? The power's out. We're leaving.
We can't leave.
Please help me.
We're stuck here.
I don't know. Are you thinking of the famed character actor from such films as Scarface and Independence Day?
Is that Robert Lozier?
That's Robert Loggia.
Loggia?
Loggia.
Loggia. I don't think I was talking about... Oh, is that the guy? That's the general.
Are you talking about Donald Logue?
Maybe I was talking about Donald Logue.
Are you talking about Trash Bullock from Gotham? That's Donald
close.
Logue.
All right, well, they should have made it about him.
Right, they should call it the Loggia and have it just be Donald Logue and Robert Loggia trapped in a lodge together.
Oh, God.
Man, can you imagine? Especially since one of them is dead. So that would just be a fucking wild motion picture.
That would be complicated.
Mm-hmm. We can do it. We have the tech. We possess the technology. We brought Carrie Fisher back to life.
That's true. We did.
God damn it.
Against her will.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the follow-up to the directors of Goodnight Mommy, right?
Yeah, it's the same two German directors as Goodnight Mommy, and it's like an inverse of the theme of that film.
Yeah. What did you think of this?
I think I liked it. It was very... I like where it ended up. This movie is a slow burn horror movie, and in the middle section, it became very hard to hold my attention.
Yeah.
But I was pleasantly surprised by the turn.
You don't mean the twist, do you?
I think I mean the twist.
Oh. I had the same experience with Goodnight Mommy, which is that I was like, oh, I see what's happening. And then the thing I thought was happening happened.
See, I didn't... I thought this movie tricked me. This movie successfully tricked me. I really thought they were all dead.
See,
and I was like, I'm going to have to sit here. Like, I checked the time when the kid from It, Jaden Martell, I think is his name, first introduces the notion that they're dead. And it's like 45 minutes into the film. And I'm like, I have to sit here for another hour waiting for these people to figure out that they're dead.
That was the thing, is that's why... I mean, this isn't a bad movie. I like the performances. I ended in the opposite place where I was like...
The two kids are very good.
Yeah, I ended disappointed, though. I kept fluctuating from liking this movie to not liking it because it kept going down routes. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it ultimately picked the one that wasn't. Because here's the thing, and
I disagree. I think the film's ending is interesting, but let's talk about it.
Less interesting, I guess. I think Goodnight Mommy has this problem too. Is I don't think of these as horror movies. They're to horror. They're the way horror makes you scared. Mm-hmm. This is the genre that makes you depressed. Like, I find their movies depressing.
Right,
more than horror movies.
They're psychological horror movies. So it's like, what if you became convinced of an idea and you just followed that idea into mayhem and destruction and misery? Right,
and then Leonardo DiCaprio's like, no, don't jump. And then you jump anyway. But yeah.
Wait,
no,
what?
no. It's Inception.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
They
exactly.
incepted her.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you now.
Okay.
I'm there with you now.
People might have noticed that we're going to spoil this movie, and of course we are.
We always do. You guys know this.
Yeah, they know this.
I would actually recommend you watch this movie. I think this is an interesting movie to talk about.
Yeah. Well, so the premise of the movie is that Alicia Silverstone is there.
Yeah,
and then
ever
she's
so
suddenly
briefly.
not. Yeah, and then she's suddenly not there.
I mean,
she's the kids. There's the guy with kids, and he's about to remarry to this woman, and he's telling his ex-wife.
They're not even fully divorced yet. They're separated.
Yeah.
The movie begins with her dropping the kids off at his apartment, and he's like, "Look, we got to talk. I think we should finalize the divorce because I'm going to marry Grace, my new girlfriend, who is 20 years younger than me."
Right. And then
and she immediately goes home and shoots herself.
Right, which is pretty. It's an overreaction.
It is.
She has two kids.
I suspect. I mean, I don't know. Suicide is such a shorthand in movies, particularly in horror movies, that they don't really get into the complexities of it. But I guess it's just up to us to assume that she had other things going on.
Yeah.
And this was just the final push that was like, well, fuck it.
It was neat to see Alicia Silverstone because that's felt like some stunt casting where they were like, or not stunt casting, but like misdirection casting where they were just like, you think she's going to be in this? No, she's not going to be in this.
This movie leans heavily into misdirection.
Yeah. I guess
traditionally,
yeah.
I don't know how you attacked it with your galaxy brain, but
well, I don't know if it was misdirection. Everything. Here's the thing: is I'll give one of the things that did satisfy me is that everything that happened for a reason. I was kind of worried that they were throwing all this shit at us that wasn't going to matter.
Yes, in the middle chunk.
And the thing that I was very specifically drawn to, and the reason I was like, oh, I see what they're doing, is that she gets mad and fights with the son. I forget about what. And then the very next scene, he brings her tea. And she's like, oh, thank you. And he smiles and walks away. And I was like, there's nothing in this movie that indicated that he would bring her tea. He drugged her.
When I saw that, in this movie, that's one of the things I kind of liked about this movie is I kept going back and forth. Like the movie the movie teases you a lot. Like it has a repeated motif of dollhouses, which at first I was like groaning because I was like, oh fuck, deliver me from Hereditary, please.
Yeah, who told somebody that dollhouses were scary? Why are there dollhouses?
Well, if you look at the composition of the film and what the film is about, dollhouses are very claustrophobic. Dollhouses are about setting things up, like they're just characters and you place them where you want them to go. And they tease a lot of the scenes coming up with shots from the dollhouse to the point where you could interpret it as, oh, this is foreshadowing, like this is showing us what's really happening. And then you realize at the end, no, it was the brother and sister planning this with her dollhouse.
Right. Yeah, it's. I would say the dollhouse is way more motivated in story than Hereditary. I found it more interesting in Hereditary, but I definitely think it has more of a right to be in this film.
Correct. Yeah,
for that reason,
it has way more to do with the story in this film than it did in Hereditary. Like Hereditary, it just felt like an idea that Ari Aster had. He was like, "Oh, fuck Ari Aster." Anyway, in this movie, like. It's about claustrophobia and cabin fever to a degree. Like so much of the movie, particularly in the second act, well, actually throughout, but it's a lot of really, really uncomfortably tight close-ups.
Right, yeah.
When they're characters and scenes. And it'll show you establishing shots. The movie's also extremely symmetrical. in an unsettling way because it'll show you establishing shots from the dollhouse and then from an actual house. And in some scenes, it takes you a minute to figure out whether or not you're looking at the dollhouse or a real house.
Yeah.
So I thought that was it actually served a narrative purpose, and that actually intrigued me. And the dollhouse scenes, like I said, tricked me because. Like I said earlier, they tease scenes where it's like, oh, you think maybe it's just the movie being a movie and being like, oh, isn't it creepy that the dollhouse is echoing what happens in real life? And it's like, no, it's literally them planning what's going to happen. And then with the tea scene, like you said, my initial thought was, oh, he's drugging her.
Right. I guess but what
then,
it is...
But then I mistrusted I doubted myself because the two kids are very good. And they give such a convincing, we don't know what's going on, that I was like, well, fuck, maybe. And I never considered the little girl would be a part of something so diabolical because she's sort of...
Because it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. She's not vicious. The boy is vicious.
Yeah, a lot of it, like her finding the stuff in the snow, and like there's a lot of stuff that's like, oh, they couldn't have planned that. And then they just, I don't know. This is what happened with Goodnight Mommy, is that the spoilers for Goodnight Mommy, at the beginning I was like, oh, one of the kids is dead. But that surely can't be it.
The brother is clearly dead. But in the first 5 minutes of Goodnight Mommy, you're like, oh, he's clearly dead.
And then I doubted myself. I was like, well, that can't be it. That's too easy. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, oh no, the thing I thought it was is that and so this time around I sort of was like, oh, I bet that's got to be it. That has to be it. There's no reason to show that shot. They tried to hide it, and then when the kid says, "What if we're dead?" And then when he goes to hang himself, that was the only time I doubted it a little, and I was like, oh, wouldn't that be interesting if this is actually just a ghost movie about being a ghost suddenly? Like the idea that the cult comes to haunt her, or like, she tries to call her home. And I was like, what a neat, no, they're just tricking her. Like, because it immediately was just them being like, oh, here's all our stuff.
It was like, oh, okay. Brutally gaslighting her.
Yeah. And like, to a drastic level.
And that's
because he also gives her the tea and then she passes out and can't wake up and like gets all fucked up. So it was like, he drugged her. Like he drugged her, right? Like, right, movie. And then when it was like, oh, we're actually dead, and the kids like starts just flats out say it, I was like, well, you better have a reason for that scene before, because if you don't, then that scene is a ridiculous, like red herring. Like that's the kid wouldn't do that.
That's the thing, is you could interpret it two ways.
Could you though? Because he was a shitty kid.
He was, but you could. Like, if, like, my knee-jerk reaction, because I just fucking didn't trust that kid, because
for the record, the kids are having a hard time.
The kids are having a hard time. Their father's being an idiot by doing this.
Yes, this was a really dumb move. The plot, we haven't even gotten to the rest of the plot, is that the father's like, so anyway, kids, your mom blew her head off. I'm remarrying. Let's go to this cabin. I'm
going to leave you alone for like 3 days with my biscuit girlfriend who is maybe, I don't know, 14 years older than my son.
Right. And you guys are just going to work it all out.
And I'm going to force you guys to bond while I'm not there.
Yeah. It wasn't a great plan.
No, and then they get
snowstorm.
Well, they get into the fact that she was in a cult. She was the only survivor of like a Jonestown style cult. Everybody committed suicide except for her. They purposefully left her alive to document the mass suicide. And she was the subject of a book that he was writing, and he fell in love with her, and
so he's just terrible.
Yeah, left his wife for this woman, and then leaves his children with this woman.
Yeah.
And his kids decide to gaslight the mighty ever-loving fuck out of her. And
it's like a psychological home aloneing.
Yeah, they're to the point where, and this is maybe my biggest criticism of the film, which you hit upon earlier, they are sophisticatedly cruel with their gaslighting.
He does hanging himself gag.
Yeah, with a harness. And then we see the harness and we see the speaker, and we're not quite sure what those images mean at the time.
Oh, the speaker bummed me out, because the speaker, when it was like she's hearing the cultists say stuff, and then they showed the speaker, and I was like, okay, so they're definitely just gaslighting.
So they're definitely gaslighting.
That was the moment I was like, okay.
Like 30 seconds later, they reveal that it's a trick.
That's true.
So it's like, by showing us those two isolated images right before that, it's sort of like priming us for it, and kind of, I don't know. I think these directors are very effective with imagery.
They do. It's very good shots, very good imagery. I don't find them. If they are writing their stuff, I didn't actually look this up. I don't think their writing's that great. I don't think this movie.
They have writing credits on this film. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't think the people in this act like humans. They didn't. It didn't feel like they were saying much with it, and it just sort of. Just kind of bummed me out at the end. There's also that, and this is a lot of this genre, and I know we tend to have the same taste with this slow burn horror.
Yeah.
But this one didn't do it for me when it came to the slow burn horror. It was a lot of quiet followed by just an abrupt sound, like organ music or something, and it was like, oh, you're stretching for time. You're stretching. There's nothing.
This movie could have been about 10 minutes shorter.
Yeah, and it didn't even have to. The other, like, I guess what it is that until the end, there's not much about it that makes it a horror movie. It's just kind of people in a lodge.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's seeing things, which is compounded by her confusion and the weird shit that's going on.
Right.
And the repeated crucifix imagery.
Right.
Which is that's probably my highest compliment of the film, is that I said earlier, the shots are composed symmetrically to an eerie degree, and they're always composed with this idea of a crucifix.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't like it. It's a thing that upsets her to the point where she's uncomfortable when the kids say grace. She hides the religious iconography in the house because it bothers her.
Well, she's like an addict almost.
Exactly. Like she came from a religious
suicide cult. And she's like, hey,
so it's like, I can't look at this.
Yeah.
And then she wanders off in the snow and finds a cottage that looks like a crucifix. That one's a little more obvious, but I fucking lost my train of thought.
I don't know. They're definitely the imagery of all of this that actually, like, I think the only part of the movie.
That's right. I think the imagery is very horror movie.
Yeah. The only imagery that movie actually freaked me out, like, there was only one shot that would maybe go, ooh, that's good, was the snow angels. But did that mean the kids did that?
I think that was a dream she had.
Okay.
I think she has a couple of strange dreams that get more. I'm pretty sure that one was a dream, because there are two things the kids are playing on, or preying on rather, for her. They're preying on the fact that they want her to know that they resent her deeply for trying to take the place of their mother, and also the fact that they blame her specifically for their mother's suicide.
Right.
Which is what the Snow Angels evokes. Because
the
little girl, excuse me, I'm choking to death.
That's all right.
The little girl very specifically, like, remember they're having a conversation about dogs, and she's like, you want to see the Christmas present we made my dad?
Right,
and it's like
it's them doing
home
snow
video
angels
with their mom making snow angels. Knowing how the film ends, like, that scene is like very clearly like, oh, okay, yeah, she's fucking gaslighting her.
Yeah. So is the snow angels, did the kids go out there and make all the snow angels?
I think it's a dream. Because of, they're hitting her on that front, they're hitting her on the cult front, and she has two very, there's that one, and there's the other surreal one where she falls through the ice, which is a thing she did.
A dream,
yeah, that's definitely a dream. I can't remember if the snow angel was a dream or not. But she falls through the ice, which is a thing that actually happened when she was trying to...
The snow angel isn't a dream because the little girl wakes her up. and says like, I heard something. And that's
so it is a dream.
And then she looks outside and there's the snow angels.
Was that the same part?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
That's part of the problem with this movie.
The door swings open. That is, well, it's...
The middle chunk of this movie is just sort of adrift with weird imagery.
Yeah.
But falling through the ice, what I was saying is that's a thing that happened that connects her with trying to be motherly to the kids, because the little girl lost her doll that represents her mom through a fishing hole in the ice and was trying to crawl towards it. She pulled her back to get the doll, falls through the ice, has to get pulled out. And in the dream, she falls through the ice and gets dragged down by the fucking Jim Jones
her dad.
proxy from her church. Was that her dad? I think that was the
The
implication.
newspaper said the daughter of...
Oh, okay.
That was the other... Yeah. I guess it could have been exposition. That was the other reason why I was just like pretty damn sure they were gaslighting her, is the way they set it up where they Google her and they find all the information and they find the prayers.
And
it was just like, oh, they're finding all the things that they can use to gaslight her.
Right. I mean, yeah, and in a rewatch, it's very obvious. But at the time, like when I was watching this for the first time, I didn't peg that as being like, oh, they're gathering ammunition. It just seemed like they were trying to figure out more about this crazy woman that they were about to be locked with.
I didn't at the time. It was it all clicked the moment he gave her the tea. I was like, oh, right. And like when she starts to see the imagery, which ultimately is a dream, I guess, when she sees them in the cult with the thing over their mouths and stuff like that.
She's hallucinating, yeah.
She's hallucinating there.
Because she definitely sleepwalks.
Yeah, even pills or no pills.
Yeah, she definitely sleepwalks.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the kids were trying to achieve, if not murdering
I think they were
her.
just trying to break her.
Yeah.
But they didn't expect it to end violently, which is weird when you're gaslighting someone who was part of a suicide cult.
Right.
Their end game.
That was
baffling.
the other thing, is I assumed it was going to be a full-on Goodnight Mommy where the kids were straight up just like, we're trying to end this person. Because I couldn't... The moment they became concerned for her, I was like, I don't get it. Why are you suddenly concerned?
That's also the moment
really
where the movie loses me.
Where they reveal it?
To a point.
That's where it loses me too, yeah.
I liked the reveal. Like, I liked the notion. It's like, oh, these kids were gaslighting her the whole time. That's interesting. Like, I thought that was interesting. But the movie asks us to make several leaps of human decency, basically, between now and then. Because the son is, what, 15, 16?
Yeah.
Okay. And Grace, the potential stepmom, is...
not much older.
Not much older. She's not big. Like it's Riley Keough from Under the Silver Lake and Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh yeah,
She's Elvis Presley's granddaughter.
Yeah, good for her. Good for her.
She's kind of waifish. And there's a couple of scenes. Like when they walk downstairs and she's dragged burning firewood out of the fire to kneel upon it, and she's doing self-flagellation essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm like shouting at the TV. I'm like, "Fucking stop her!" Like,
right, that kid could take her.
He could. The two of them definitely could pull her off that firewood.
Yeah, the kid's just sort of
little girl is like 12, right?
Yeah. After that.
They're
just
big
sort of hide
like,
in the attic.
Right, like he's basically the same size as her. And then he's got another person, the sister. So it's like they could have knocked her off that firewood. Like they probably could have subdued her.
Yeah.
And then later in the film, when she comes upstairs with the gun and like makes the sister burn the doll that is her mother, it's like, you guys just like fucking tackle her. Yeah. And then the next scene, when the dad finally shows up, she walks downstairs from the attic and has the gun pointed at her head, and he's trying to talk her out of pulling the trigger, and she finally pulls the trigger, and it's empty. It was an empty chamber, and she takes the gun away from her head. I screamed at the TV tackle her.
Yeah. Take the fucking gun.
What are you doing? Like there's several scenes where they just don't do anything.
Are they even tied up at the end?
They're not. That was the next thing I was getting to. The very end of the film is she has them at the dinner table with their dead father. And she's making them say grace. The gun is in the middle of the table. She's not holding it.
Yeah, she's just singing with her eyes closed.
Yeah, and singing Nearer My God to Thee.
Right.
And then gets up and walks around behind them so that the gun is even further away from them.
Right.
And like we see that the son is holding the sister's hand. And she starts to put tape over their mouths that it's electrical tape that says sin over it. And that's a repeated motif from her Suicide Cult. It's like, motherfucker, grab the gun, hit her with a chair, do something.
Yeah. And
what are you doing?
It just made me depressed. Like when the scene where she's slowly walking to the car where they try to leave, and then she slowly walks to the car, I was like, this isn't scary. Like
it's just bleak.
Yeah, it's just bleak and frustrating. And then the way they act, it's just like, this is just frustrating. Like, you guys you're just frustrating and depressing me because the characters aren't doing anything that a human being would do.
Right.
And it's shot from her perspective, not from their perspective.
Right.
So there's no tension. And I was like, so you're just slowly making me watch this. Like, watch this unfold. A Goodnight Mommy had that too, where it was like, it's a child. Hey, lady, it's a child. And I know that's the point, but there were points in that movie where it was just like, you can figure this out.
Right.
Like, there's a part where she gets away in that and she like trips. And it was like, like,
it's a 10-year-old boy. Kick him in the fucking chest.
Yeah, like I don't feel like I don't want to be here. Like I don't want you're not making me want to be here.
This movie was more earned with that sensation.
A little bit, but you just pointed out a lot more to me just now.
Well, yeah, the characters do it's mostly like the inaction of the two kids and the dad is like fucking baffling.
Yeah.
But like the scene when she walks out to the car where they're trying to get away and they just can't because there's too much snow, which doesn't make any sense. He should be able to reverse because the dad literally just drove up that road 3 minutes ago. I think the movie should have ended there. Like
when the dad walked up?
No, with her walking up to the front of the car and they can't get away and then it cuts.
That's where I thought it would.
Yeah. It should have ended there. That scene, I think, is more forgivable. And the bleakness of this movie, I think, is more forgivable because we're watching the characters reap what they sow.
Right.
Whereas in Goodnight Mommy, it's just this mom who is inexplicably powerless.
Yeah, she also kind of sucks.
She sucks, but yeah, it's
because
like
the kid's
the
clearly
movie asks
grieving.
us to make a lot of leaps to allow for what happens in Goodnight Mommy.
But that's
in this
also...
movie, it's like, no, you guys were psychologically tormenting somebody with severe homicidal trauma,
right?
And you're surprised this is where it ended up. Like, like when you're watching this movie, you're kind of like, well, fuck these kids. They kind of earned this.
Yeah, that's also what I wanted to bring up, because Goodnight Mommy, I think, had this too. But you're right, this has it more, which is that I don't care. I don't sympathize with anybody.
Oh, I sympathize with Grace.
Sorta. Yeah, I mean...
She didn't do anything to anyone.
No, she didn't really.
They just fucking demolished her.
I don't sympathize with the dad. I don't sympathize with the kids.
The dad's an ass.
Yeah.
Like, the kids are shitty.
Grace is fine, but she's not. They don't give us. She's not the main. Like, we start with the dad and the kids, and and I know why we did that. But like, I didn't like her as a character. It was like they sort of have to shift it. They don't show her face for a while.
Right. We don't see Grace's face. I checked because it was noticeable that they were very deliberately preventing us from seeing Grace.
That
like,
was the other thing.
We saw the back of her head. We saw her through a clouded mirror, and we saw her through like an ice-covered windshield. Like they kept us from seeing Grace's face for 20 minutes.
Which to me implied that she was going to be the person who did the bad stuff. Which, yes and no. Like
it was.
I think I would have liked this better. I think I would have liked this better if they didn't trigger her. Like
this
if it was.
This is my interpretation of that decision. My interpretation of that decision is we keep seeing her from other characters' perspectives.
True.
And we keep seeing her defined by their outrage at what the dad has done. So we see her and hear about her leading up to that point until we finally see her from people who have already decided who she is.
Right. They already hate her.
Yeah. Before she even gets a chance to defend herself.
Right.
So I think that's the purpose behind that.
Right.
Which is it's an interesting filmmaking technique. I don't know that it benefits the story that much. But
I just read it as I don't know. This is a character that's going to do something, which I sort of knew from the trailer. That she was clearly going to. Oh, like the trailer doesn't show it, but I just assumed she was going to go crazy. She was going to go Jack Nicholson. Like they set that up. The reason she does in this is a very interesting.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. But that was the thing, I guess, is that was the movie I was expecting. Mm-hmm. And then it's that thing of like, oh yeah, they're gaslighting her, and then she goes crazy and kills them all. And then she does. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that was the thing. That was Goodnight Mommy again had that too, where it was like, oh, these kids are tying up their mom. Oh, they're gonna like torture her to death. And then that was what they do. And it was like, oh, well, why did I watch this? Like, you just showed me that thing. Like, that was my beginning expectation, and then it didn't subvert it.
I felt this movie subverted my expectations, at least. And I think this movie earned its endpoint way more than Goodnight Mommy did.
Oh, 100%. It's not a bad film. I just think it's just okay. Yeah, like Goodnight Mommy I did not like. This movie I was like, oh, this is not bad.
These are talented filmmakers.
Yeah. I'm just like, I'm not it wasn't my thing. I guess I wouldn't recommend it because I didn't get much out of it ultimately. Except that it was well made.
It's very well made. It plays on a very common, again, like The Shining, it's exploring an idea of family relations that a lot of people are familiar with. Like The Shining is sort of about a dad resenting his family, and this is about kids resenting their stepmom.
Yeah.
And it's just played out to a bombastic, horrific degree.
Right.
And I think that makes it effective on like a visceral level because most people are familiar with that feeling. Well, like your parents divorcing and it's not as extreme usually as it is in this film.
No, it doesn't usually end this way.
But there's this person's an interloper and you don't want them there, and you rebel against them.
I think a more interesting plot to me was the potential of a horror Beetlejuice, where they die very quickly in the movie. Mm-hmm. Because that's always the twist. The twist is always we're dead. Whenever these movies do, we've been dead all along.
Yeah,
that's
Beetlejuice is like right up in 20 minutes. They're like, no,
exactly.
We're dead.
I wouldn't mind a horror movie where it's like you're dead. Guess what? Not fun. It's not fun.
It's a pain in the ass. Yeah.
I love the idea of this woman, the cult thing, and then the idea that there's all these people who like someone who they were part of a cult. The cult all killed themselves, but that person, and then they die themselves, and the cult is there, like mad at them. I was like, oh, that would be like a fun horror plot premise, is that you're already dead and you're still being haunted in some way. or you're in some sort of purgatory and you know it, and it's not.
See,
fun.
I don't know.
Well,
because where does that movie end?
when they said it in this, I was like, that can't be it because it happened at the wrong time.
Right,
it either happens at the beginning of the movie or it happens near the end. And that when he does the thing where he says, "I had a dream that we all died," that was another moment where I was like, "Oh, okay, they're either gaslighting her or they're dead." And it's either way, it's one of those two things. And since it wasn't like I wouldn't have mind been surprised more, I guess, for that reason. But I started thinking about the idea of a movie where they start dead, where they're dead for a while, and I was like, oh, I bet that has some potential. And then I got more interested in that idea.
Yeah, the midpoint of this movie had me convinced this was like a less good version of the others.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was like, at some point it becomes clear that everyone's dead, and you're like, well, now I'm just kind of waiting for the characters to figure it out.
Right, but the kid says it, and then the kid
says it, yeah. And that, in a rewatch, it becomes very effective for the ending because he's planting the idea in her mind.
Right, that was also the version I liked better, is when he fake hangs himself. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool if he's dead? I wouldn't expect that. I wouldn't have expected that. And then he's like, we're in purgatory. And I was like, you should have stayed dead. Like, I would have liked that, where it's a movie about them all losing their minds in this cabin. And like,
if they had all lost their minds in a different direction, I think that would have been more effective.
Yeah, I was kind of interested in that idea. Is that it would have been such an abrupt beat of the movie if that kid had hung himself right there and then, because I would have never expected that.
Right. Like, if only one character thought they were dead, and then another character thought something different, and the third character thought something different, I think that would have been an interesting direction to take this in. I still think that this movie's twist is interesting because I didn't expect it. Like, it was weird. Like, my movie watching sensibilities told me that, oh, he's drugged that tea. But like my person sensibilities was like, well, these two kids aren't going to be sinister. Like what would they have to gain from this?
And it is kind of out of character.
Yeah. Or just unexpected, rather. Like I
don't know.
You never.
The little girl, like you said, like it doesn't feel completely earned with the little girl because she reacts like he reacts to his mother's death with anger, and she reacts to their mother's death with extreme sorrow. Yeah, and if they like that's it was that combined with then they were concerned for her safety. And I was like, this little girl just agreed to do something incredibly mean and then was very convincing of it. Like I thought, oh, these kids are sociopaths.
They are. They absolutely are.
But then the moment she loses her dog, they're like, oh no. Or the moment the dog ends up dead, which, of course, if you're a little dog in a horror movie, it's,
Yeah, that broke the little girl. Yeah, and that's why they eventually reveal that it's a gaslight.
But like, yeah, it felt inconsistent. What they were guilty, what they made them feel guilty.
Right, like I don't understand what their end point was. Like,
yeah,
they clearly wanted to break her. They wanted to torment her, and they wanted her out of their lives. But I guess you can chalk that up.
Her. Like wouldn't they then want her to kill herself or to walk into the snow or
why wouldn't the son get the gun safe? Like he must know that gun is there.
Yeah.
Like the dad has probably shown his son, his like 15-year-old son, that gun.
Right. Great of the dad to be like, so I'm going to leave you guys here for a few days.
Dad's a real piece of shit.
Don't worry. Here's a loaded gun.
Yep.
Yeah, I did not feel bad for that dad dying. That's a shitty
he was an
family.
Asshole.
Yeah,
like he fucking destroyed his family.
Yeah,
so he could fucking fuck a woman that's 20 years younger than him. Yeah. That's the whole reason this all happened.
Right. Yeah,
I could hook up with Elvis Presley's granddaughter if I destroy my family.
And I guess, like, obviously, it's not her fault, the main character. but
no, it's not. None of it's her fault.
No, but she must have known to an extent that she was getting involved with this married man with kids, which isn't to really make any of it her fault, because it isn't. But that's also like not a great idea.
No. I mean,
like, no one's making good ideas. These things happen.
These things happen a lot of ways.
Well, I would argue with her character, and why I'm more sympathetic is she's also an ex-cult member who clearly met someone who wanted to listen to her. And
when you're an ex, listen. Yeah. When you're an ex-cult member, you're attracted to men who speak with authority and offer comfort, and like, she's vulnerable.
Yeah, look, Tom, we've all started a cult.
Right, we've all started a cult.
Yeah.
It's just they're always these men who offer people who are they offer vulnerable people a solution, and that was probably what he did for her. A lot of people a lot of married men who carry on affairs don't tell the woman they're dating.
Yeah, I was going to say
for a while that they're married.
You don't have to be in a cult to have gotten involved with a married man. Like, there's a million reasons. That's what I mean, is that it's not. We don't really know her past, and she's certainly not to blame for everything that happened.
And I think that's intentional. We don't know anything about her except what the kids know about her.
Right.
And
we know the one thing. We know the one thing about her.
What's that?
The cult. We know the one thing.
Well, that's what I said. We don't know anything about her except what the kids know about her.
Yeah.
So it's like we're already forced again with the imagery where we don't see her clearly until 20 minutes into the film. We're already in a position where we're being provoked to judge her from a point of view where it's like, well, you don't see her clearly. You don't know everything about her. You just know this one thing.
Right.
I mean, it's a major thing, but I think she's absolute, like, even more so than the kids, which is weird to say. She's absolutely the most sympathetic character in this film.
Oh, 100%. The kids aren't sympathetic at all.
No, they're little fucking bastards.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, why would you do this to a person?
These directors have an obsession with evil kids.
Yes, they do.
I think that's the other thing, is knowing their other film, it was like, yeah, of course it's the kids. Like, I think these guys need better, like, writers. I think they need whatever they're doing, because they are good directors, but it felt like they were doing the exact same movie. Modern architecture, stuck in a house with kids, the kids tormenting the adult. Like, it's the same thing, and then there's a twist, and I don't know. I need more from these guys.
You're saying, I'm going to correct you, it's a man and a woman.
What is?
But yes.
Oh, it's a man and a woman?
Yeah.
Oh, good for them.
So, I mean, but guys, I mean, I don't know, I use guys as a general term, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It hasn't been enough. Either of these films, they're all right. I know a lot of people do like them, but I see why they're divisive. Like, if you look at the reviews from this got okay critical review.
Yeah,
and then it got pretty shitty audience review.
It has about a 6 on Metacritic.
Okay.
Like a 60.
Yeah, that's fair.
It has a 6.1 on IMDb. Like,
yeah, I think that's fair. I think these are okay movies. The problem, I guess, is that they're so depressing that I can't sit through an okay movie that's this depressing.
I don't mind horror being depressing if it's earned.
Sure, but I would say more like if it's good. Like, if I need to like the movie more to be this depressed.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah.
Like, I would compare The Lodge to something like Pet Sematary, where it's like, this is a spiral, but it's earned. Like, the characters are earning this spiral.
Yeah. Also, I would say the dad in Pet Sematary isn't earning that spiral, but I enjoy it.
He is. Like, he is descending.
You're right. You're right.
It's
sort of the point.
Like, if
when he buries the wife, spoilers for Pet Sematary, when he buries his wife, it's like, no, don't No, you know exactly what's going to happen,
man. But like, he's broken at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I think if the lodge was told from the kid's point of view, it would be Pet Sematary. Because they keep looking into this abyss where they're like, no, well, we've got to do this thing that we decided we were going to do.
I think I would have liked this better from the kid's point of view. If it was just us watching them do this elaborate prank and there was no twist, and then she starts cracking and it becomes more from that perspective. I think I might have liked this more. I'm not certain.
It sort of switches to the kid's perspective at the end. It's weird.
It does.
Like, it's only really her perspective for the middle chunk of the film.
Right. It starts at the kid's perspective as well.
It starts with the kid's perspective and it ends with the kid's perspective. That's why.
Yeah. It's sort of no one's, because it's also Alicia Silverstone's perspective briefly.
Only briefly. It's chiefly from the kids.
Yeah.
So I don't mind when horror is depressing. Some of the most effective horror that I've ever read or seen is bleak as shit.
But it's just depressing. Like, there's no horror in this to me. I didn't find there was no scariness to me because it didn't feel like there was a threat. All the lead up was just the atmospheric. We're going to do single shots of dark rooms and then nothing happens.
It's much more of like, sounds pretentious to say, but it's much closer to like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah.
In the sense where it's like, oh, if only X had happened. Like,
yeah, it definitely feels more like a tragedy.
If only they had told her sooner that this was a fucking gag, then she wouldn't have murdered everyone.
Right. It's a very preventable tragedy.
Yeah, but it's born out of sadism, so it's like, I don't know. I'm gonna watch this movie again. This is a very interesting movie to me because it is that in the sense that, if only this had happened earlier, this was totally preventable. But it's also sort of like close to like a film like Death Warrant or like something about the nature of revenge, where it's like, no, this is just a destructive spiral and it's going to destroy everything around you. There's something interesting and resonant about those kinds of stories to me, where it's like, if you do,
I know what you mean. That's why I feel like then put it from the perspective more of the kids.
If you do it from the perspective of the kids, for sure, Death Warrant is 100% from Kevin Bacon's perspective,
right? If it's just a revenge thing that goes too far. I was briefly, you know what twist I wanted? I wanted it to just start being like Arrested Development. And then the dad shows up and they're like, and that's why you don't try to get revenge on your stepmom. And it just becomes like everybody's gaslighting everybody.
I would have thrown my television out the window.
I would have been so happy.
I would just give up movies altogether.
Right.
I would be like, I don't understand this medium anymore.
I guess that's what the first twist did feel like to me. It was the same, which it was like, oh, are they gaslighting her? But that would be dumb, right? And then it's like, oh, they are. They're doing an elaborate theater stunt with hanging himself and like putting speakers in the house. Like it felt kind of silly. It was like, oh, they hid all the food. When are they eating? What are they doing? Are they sneaking around at night making snow angels? Did they? I guess they drugged her and buried. Did the kid? Yeah, I guess the kid photoshopped a newspaper saying they were dead. Yep. And then was like, I'll show her this newspaper, which is a really silly thing when you think about it, of a way to convince someone they're dead. Have you ever tried to convince someone they're dead, by the way? This is something I also did when I was a child.
No, let's try to do it.
I did it once. It wasn't successful.
Let's make it a Patreon tier.
Okay. Convince.
For X amount of money, we'll try to convince somebody that they're dead.
Yeah, just give us a name.
It's a really good Patreon tier.
It is. It's a pretty good tier.
I'm excited about this.
Have you ever also, this was one of the things I was thinking about, have you ever accidentally thought you were dead?
No. I've had dreams about it, but no, I've never thought I was dead.
I guess it's not like honest, but you ever have mornings where you like get up, you text some people, no one texts you back. You like go outside, you don't see anybody. everything feels a little weird, and you're like, wait, did I die? Is this death? I've had a few mornings where I'm just like, am I dead? No, probably not. And then, I tend not to be dead.
Where I had an apartment down the street from my parents' house, and I left my apartment on Christmas morning to walk over there. It was close enough that I could walk, to celebrate Christmas. And there had just been a heavy snowfall, and it's Christmas morning, obviously, so like not many people are out.
Right.
And it was just it was like freakishly silent as I was walking through the snow, and there was no footprints in the snow. It was newly fallen snow that I was walking through. I never had the thought that I was dead, but that's like the closest experience that I've had.
You were just enjoying a very like magical
that's like
winter
the most
wonderland
what dreams
moment.
may come moment I've ever had. Where it's like, the world is dead and I am alive.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yeah, because all I was enjoying, the reason I thought I was dead is because I was just getting a moment of peace.
Sure.
It was like, well, that's what it really was. It was just like, for a second, the world wasn't bothering me. And I was too cynical. I was just like, I think I died. I must have died. Is that not a thing people do?
I don't know.
That feels like a thing. I think there are people listening to this.
Tell us about your mornings when you thought you were dead.
Yeah.
Audience.
I totally think that's a thing.
You bastards.
Yeah. Any more thoughts about the Lodge? I guess I would recommend it for other people, not for myself, because this is clearly like an interesting film. And Goodnight Mommy was the same. I know people I respect who liked Goodnight Mommy. I didn't. I found it the opposite of good. But
well, my biggest problem with Goodnight Mommy is that I figured out the twist 5 minutes in.
Right.
This one kept me bouncing back and forth.
Right. You tend to be very good about figuring out twists. So I'm wondering if on a different day you would have figured it out.
Maybe I didn't suspect the kids, and that might be a blind spot of mine where I'm just like, well, kids aren't going to be the murderers.
You got to learn to distrust kids.
I got to learn to distrust kids, yeah.
Yeah. That's a skill. That's a survival skill.
The next kid that wanders onto my lawn, I'm going to stand my ground and blow his head off.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's up to.
That's what you do.
That's what you do. That's what you do.
Yeah, don't trust them. They'll gaslight you. Don't
trust those fucking kids.
Kids are very good at gaslighting, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Right? Because you don't trust monsters.
Them. Well, because they don't have empathy yet. So they're just little serial killers. Yeah. Yeah, don't trust them. That's why you don't, yeah.
Fucking children.
Fucking children are terrible.
My God. All right, I think I don't have anything else to say. I think that's a sode.
All right. Folks, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you guys so much for hanging out.
Yeah. If you're curious, you should check out our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefully unemployed. We have exclusive podcasts there like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. There's also tiers where you can produce your own podcast episodes. We also watch movies with people every Friday night.
We do.
So that's a tier as well. So check all that out, please.
We had a whole Ed Harris string last Friday.
Well, it was an Ed Harris, Nicolas Cage, right? Because we started on The Wicker Man, and then we went from The Wicker Man to
The Rock.
The Rock. That's the first Nicolas Cage versus Ed Harris, and then we did National Treasure 2, Book of Secrets. So don't you guys listen to what you're missing out.
Those are the kinds of movies you could watch while listening to us talk about it or whatever the hell.
Yeah, not always the movie.
Oh, man. We also have a store, tpublic.com/stores/gamefullyunemployed, where you can get t-shirts, stickers, all kinds of stuff. They're doing a thing right now where they'll make masks, and if you buy a mask, they'll donate a mask. I think it's good. We haven't heard any milkshake duck news about it yet. So
yeah, well, it is true that if you don't buy a mask, they burn the mask. That's what they do. Is for every mask they don't sell.
Right. For every mask you don't buy when you go to their website, they flush a mask down the toilet.
Yeah.
And they shout your name at it as it goes down the drain.
Mm-hmm. They'll know your name, too.
Yeah. No, they all know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's up to you how you want to be remembered.